we've been talking about this new facility that's opening in Thousand Oaks, and that the Autism Research Group is going to be partnering with CARD, and you're going to be doing center-based therapy there and doing research while you're there. And I think I just wanted you to clarify, because sometimes a parent hears something like that and then goes, oh, so is my child now going to become a petri dish? Are you doing experiments? And I know as a parent, when we started at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders as clients, and we were bringing our child, that was the first time that I got to meet you, and you sat down and went through things with me and explained it in a really cool way, so that I got excited about not only was my child going to get the best treatment that had already been shown to be effective, he was going to be a part of helping other kids down the road. So talk to us about what you do.
So first of all, I remember that meeting. And how many years ago was that? 7 years ago? It's been a long time, right?
Yeah, at least seven and a half, maybe.
And so, and I don't know if I mentioned it at the time, but your child, Jim, was actually the first participant in that study, in the CARD outcome study, which is a study that's still ongoing. It's a massive, huge study, 60-something kids in it right now. He was the first one? He was the very first one, yeah. We had just initiated that study a month before you started.
How weird is that?
Yeah, weird coincidence, right?
Okay.
And it's also one of the largest, most expensive, and most important studies we've ever worked on at CARD. It's still not done, but it's getting there.
Well, my child's not done either, so maybe by the time it's done, he'll be done.
All right.
All right.
So yeah, actually, I'm glad that you asked about that study in particular, though, because that study is actually a really good example of the kind of research we're going to be doing at the new Thousand Oaks center-based program. So the purpose of that study was to evaluate the effectiveness of the treatment that we already do at CARD. So nothing different at all. It's just, let's provide top quality treatment like we always do to every kid that walks through our door, but let's scientifically evaluate what happens when we do that, okay? Because everybody out there does treatment, and that's great, but actually measuring the effectiveness of it and then publishing those data takes it to another level. It's another level of accountability, and it should help provide more evidence, right, that people in the future can use to evaluate whether or not ABA actually works and whether it's the right choice for them. So, so the study that your child participated in was just standardized assessments in every area of functioning at intake, and then every year until you're done, until you're discharged. Basically, so we could just get a big picture view of what is the outcome of CARD-implemented comprehensive ABA treatment. So the type of research that we're doing at the center-based program in Thousand Oaks is very similar. It's almost all of it, probably 90% of it, is exactly that. It's evaluating the outcomes of what we're already doing anyways at CARD. But sometimes we'll be pushing the envelope a little bit too. So for example, so there's many different facets. I don't even know where to start. I love this topic. Okay, so like facet number one is stuff that we already do and that other people in ABA do as well, but there's no research to say it actually works, right? So we actually need to fill in that gap. We need to do the research on that so that an insurance company or so that a school district or some other funding agency can't say, well, no, you don't know how to teach X, Y, and Z because there's no research supporting it. Well, even if people have been doing it for 30 years in ABA, if no one's done research on it, that's a gap, right? So some of our research is like that. It's just evaluating the effectiveness of what is kind of almost considered common clinical knowledge within ABA. That's fine. It's not the most interesting stuff, but that's fine. The much more interesting stuff is features of the CARD approach to ABA that are unique and that aren't done everywhere. So stuff that we've talked about here a lot, complex skill acquisition stuff like teaching perspective-taking skills, teaching executive function skills, things like working memory, attention, self-management, self-control, planning, problem-solving, understanding other people's intentions, emotions, desires, beliefs, thoughts, and so on, and cause and effect relations that govern all of that. That's the really interesting stuff. And so a lot of what we're doing at the Thousand Oaks Center and research everywhere in CARD will be a part of a child's regular ongoing treatment program at CARD will be something that's fairly unique that we do that not a lot of other folks out there do and that there's no research for. So it's something that we figured out, oh, look, we can teach, one thing right now is we can teach kids to predict how other people are going to feel based on whether or not they get what they want, okay? And not just be able to predict it, but then be able to actually change your own social behavior on the basis of that prediction. So if Jimmy's coming over for a play date, what is Jimmy like? what does he want to have, what does he think he's going to have when he gets here, and what can we do to kind of optimize the play date and make sure that my friend has fun. So if he thinks that he's going to get to play with monster trucks, he wants to play with monster trucks, but the monster trucks are lost or broken or stolen or something like that, what can we do to make sure that Jimmy still has fun, right? And so a lot of the research is that kind of stuff, where it's pushing ABA into areas that haven't really been done before, or for which there's very, very little research. And so we're trying to expand the research base on there. So you might ask yourself, well, how is that different from what you do anyways at CARD? And it's really not. It's basically just doing the services anyways that we would provide these kids. The difference is we're going to have additional staff watching the therapy, making sure that it's done perfectly, and taking additional data that allow us to evaluate it scientifically.
So you're really just getting more for your money because it's being done pristinely, and there's backup, and it benefits other kids down the road because it shows what's effective.
So here's an analogy: if you go down the street to regular old John Smith Hospital and you get a procedure done and they do a good job, great. If you get let's say you get an operation done, there's going to be the surgeon in there and a nurse and physician's assistant and various folks. They're going to do the procedure, it's going to work, and you're going to be healthy, and that's great, right? If you go to, let's say, Johns Hopkins Hospital or UCLA Medical Center for the same type of procedure, you're going to have all those folks in the room, but you're also going to have the chief of surgery, and you're going to have multiple other interns and multiple other people, experts, maybe even telemedicine, Skyping in from other countries because they want to learn how to do it, right? So basically you have an environment where you're getting top quality treatment, but a much larger degree of oversight and a much larger degree of participation from folks who are really at the cutting edge. And the dual mission of dissemination, of getting that information out there to other folks who don't know about it so that they can also do the same type of treatment for their kids.
It's really amazing. And I would say, for the study that we took place in, you went through all of the paperwork with me, and we had the choice to not do it.
Sure.
And you were very concise about this is what it's going to mean. And really, it meant that my child was going to get the best of what was available. And the only thing that it meant for me personally was that I was going to have to fill out surveys on a regular basis and commit to those. And that I think it was once a month in the beginning, and down the road it was a little bit further spaced out, somebody would come to the house and videotape sessions.
Exactly.
And I groused about the paperwork. I gave Art Wilkie a headache constantly. No, but I was glad that you did the surveys that you did. There was one that talked about my emotional well-being.
Parent stress index.
Yes, and it was the piece of paper that I want to say in the beginning it was every month, but I think it was every 3 months. It was
every quarter.
But it felt like every month.
I'm sure it did.
And poor Art Wilkie heard from me every single time. He would say, "Shannon, it's time again for the." And I remember some of the questions on it. One of the questions was, "How do you feel about the last article of clothing that you bought?" And I would get mad every time I would be like, "I don't have any money to buy clothes, and I'm too fat to fit in clothes. I don't want to answer this question." And I would really give Art a hard time about it and let him know. And I remember the first or second time that Art sat down with me to go over all of the test results, and there was one number. I said, "What is this number?" And he said, "That's the number that predicts whether you were being honest on your survey." And I said, "There's a thing for that?" And he goes, yeah, because sometimes people will try to make things sound better or worse than, know. And I said, "So how am I doing?" He said, "No, we're pretty confident that you're being honest."
You don't have a problem with that.
That's not, you're pretty stressed. We're pretty confident that you're being honest about how stressed you are. And there were questions about, do you feel like you're a good parent? And, things that, you go,
hard to answer.
on the little, but I was glad because I said from the beginning, this is emotional for the parents as well. It is. I mean, how are you going to get around that? And I was glad that somebody was measuring his progress. And what we see, I don't think it comes directly from that study, but what we've seen in so many studies recently is that parents of children with autism spectrum have stress on a level of being a combat.
That's right.
Person in direct combat, and that that level of stress doesn't change even as our children progress.
So now, nice that you mentioned that. That study's not complete. We've got I think 3 more kids that need their final testing.
Okay.
So it'll be another 6 months or so. But we've looked at the data multiple times throughout, and what we actually do see is a gradual reduction in those measures on Parent Stress Index for all of the kids that receive treatment.
Okay.
So that's pretty encouraging.
That is encouraging.
It's pretty nice. I mean, it could be just that parents overall are getting more used to, I don't know, whatever, but kind of unlikely, right? It's as your children gain skills and start to do better, it does make you feel maybe a little bit more empowered. Like, look, there's hope, right? It's not hopeless.
I do know that as we saw that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, that I was able to manage my stress better. I had more time to manage my stress.
Right.
You know, I'm still a stress ball, but
I don't know about you, but for me as a parent, the only thing I really care about is that things are it's possible to deal with what I need to deal with. You know what I mean? That that you do see a future, and that you see, yes, okay, he's going to be okay.
Yeah, that
and as long as you have that,
component.
like, I don't mind. I think most parents would be fine with working 24 hours a day on whatever it takes for their kid, as long as they see that it's going to work, and that there's a reason for it, and that there's some sanity to it, and it's not just hopeless. You know?
Yeah, because that thing of being powerless and not being able to do something, we just went through this when I was visiting Iowa. Jem and I got caught in a tornado where their sirens were going, and we were out, and had to stop at a store. Oh my goodness. I had to stop at a store and run in and go into the basement, and until we got to the place where we could take cover, it's the most stressed I've ever been in my entire life, because I felt the least empowered, and my child was there with me, and I was like, this can't happen on my watch. It's my responsibility to make sure he's okay. And I didn't have skills or tools or anything that I could do, and it was the worst feeling ever.
Well, I'm glad that you made it.
We were fine, and we took cover with 60 other people in a health food store. We went to the place where there was gluten-free stuff, because it made sense. It was close. It was the only place that I knew was close by.
I want to add to one more thing to what you said. So, so the study that you described was one where we used a lot of parent report measures, because there's a lot of things that we wanted to know what the parent's opinion was over the course of years. Most of our research that we do doesn't require that much effort on the part of parents. So I don't want folks to get the idea that it's tons of survey.
And it wasn't that much work, really. It was a little bit of paperwork, but I groused it out.
It can be annoying, though. It can be annoying to fill out these surveys, And the vast majority of what we do is just measuring directly the outcomes for the kid. And we'll get parent input, and we want to know how the parent feels about it, but it's not a whole lot of work and investment on the part of the parent.
I'm glad you said that, too. And then when you do want to do something that is outside the norm, you then have a different set of paperwork for that as well, for parents.
Yeah. Well, and
there were several times that we were offered different studies to participate in, and some we said yes to, and some we said no to, because we had the choice.
That's right, exactly. And I think people get, there's a common misconception in research that if something is an experiment or it's for the purposes of science, then it doesn't help the person who's doing it. You know what I mean? The vast majority of research that we do, probably 90% of the research that we do at CARD, the only purpose of it is to help the kid. And then the secondary purpose, or the last reason why we're doing it, is to evaluate how we're helping the kid. It's not to produce a cool sounding experiment that'll get published in a journal. We do hope that we publish the results of our research, but the primary purpose is to help the person. We do very, very little research where it's kind of just for science sake. That's not what we're about. We're a treatment organization. So it's, and if there is anything like that, then it's, the parents have the choice to participate or not from the beginning. There's full disclosure. And actually, it can't happen during therapy time. So if it's something that's a waste of the kid's time, it would have to happen during outside of that child's therapy hours. If it's not just evaluating their treatment, if it's maybe, for example, we might be interested in how sensory processing processes are different in kids with autism versus kids who are typically developing. Well, we might do some kind of measurement of that, like how do kids with autism respond to auditory sounds or visual stimuli, and how do they adjust to those over time, or something like that. Well, that's all very interesting, and it might matter a lot scientifically, but it's not helping the kid. So that type of study we would not actually run there in the center while the kid's getting their therapy. If we were doing a study like that, we would invite the parents to come during off hours when they're not already getting therapy.
Yeah, I can think of one study that we did that was completely separate, that was like that. And as I said, there were other things that didn't fit with our schedule that we said no to.
Sure.
That we said, oh, you know,
Absolutely.
we're gonna take a pass on this one and move on to the next. All fascinating.
One more detail.
Okay.
I don't know if Angela talked about this, but
Yeah.
we actually have some sort of parent and family support services research that we're rolling out also.
Okay.
And so it's called Project COPE, which stands for Creating Opportunities for Parental Empowerment. Did we talk about this before?
I think you and I spoke about it briefly, but we did not talk about it with Angela. So go ahead and talk about it again.
Yeah, so basically it's something that we're rolling out that is it's evidence-based support services for people who are experiencing stress or loss or grief or anxiety about a variety of issues, but we're applying it to families living with autism. And it's going to be support services for parents, and there's some different formats that we're going to test out in the context of research on creating the best model. So this is somewhere where we're doing something new. We're not really sure exactly what the best model is.
Great.
People aren't doing it yet. We're collaborating with a couple people at other centers of excellence around the country to figure out the best model. And so we will be testing out a few things like that. It'll be like, for example, sibling support groups, parent support groups, parent training seminars that have additional components added to it that'll make it more effective or maybe less anxiety provoking or maybe more fun for the parents. So a variety of things that are not just the usual ABA treatment for the kids.
It's so good. It's so good.
Thank
It's
you.
a thing that needs to happen, and oh my gosh, I'm excited for people who are going to get to participate in that, and I'm excited to see the studies from it because then maybe more people will do it.